Happy Tuesday. Blake McKenzie over here. Rachel's Ghost here in the seat with the great share microphone technology. That was muted on me. I couldn't get it going. But anyway, we're here. It's a great day. The weather's changing up here in a much positive direction. Spring, summer coming. Thank goodness. Whatever the hell happened to global warming? Is it frickin' freezing Canada, the big igloo? But anyway, we're going to start off. I got a clip. I just want to play a portion of the Promethean action. This Barbara Boyd with how they used oil to launch a dark age. I think it's really important for people to watch. And she does such a history background so succinctly, so beautifully. It talks about what's going on with Iran. It's a portion of one of the latest broadcasts from Promethean action. I joined them. They had about 150,000 people. I mean, they were no small potatoes. Now they are closing in on 1 million viewers. 1 million people are watching. These ladies have got the anointing. It seems to have dropped, and all eyes went on. We're going to talk about Tucker Carlson's ongoing implosion. Nick Fuentes. Holy shit, what a piece of work that guy is. But anyway, let's do this. The Straight Showdown. I love this title of Promethean. How they used oil to launch a dark age. There's just a portion of it, chapter. You can see right, it's moved along. I just want to play this portion for our collective edification here. Let's make her big. Play the clip and, let's give her more. There, we love you, Barbara. Did I give a thumbs up on you? Thumbs up?
Looks like it.
Okay, there we go. Atta girl. Here we go.
And why what Trump is doing right now is so historic. You have to understand what was done to us deliberately starting in 1971. When Nixon pulled the plug on Bretton Woods that August, world trade stopped being anchored in real economic production. It became a speculative casino driven by currency fluctuations. Under Henry Kissinger at Nixon's National Security Council, U.S. policy shifted from developing economies and trading around the world to controlling them and subjecting them. In May 1973, 84 of the world's top financial and political insiders gathered in secret at a Bilderberg meeting at Saltsjöbaden, Sweden. Robert O. Anderson of Atlantic Richfield, Lord Greenhill of British Petroleum, George Ball of Lehman Brothers, David Rockefeller, Zbigniew Brzezinski, and many others. William Engel published the actual documents in his book, A Century of War, Anglo-American Oil Politics and the New World Order. These records show an American speaker laying out a scenario for an imminent 400% increase in OPEC oil revenues, 6 months before the Yom Kippur War triggered exactly that. The purpose was not to prevent the oil shock, it was to manage the petrodollar flood it would create. Kissinger later called it, quote, recycling the petrodollar flows. That phrase tells you everything. The skyrocketing oil price would vacuum wealth out of every industrial economy on Earth and pump it directly into the London Eurodollar market and Wall Street. Speculation on oil and other essential commodities replaced gold as the anchor of their new system. In 1975, the Council on Foreign Relations declared that a degree of controlled disintegration in the world economy is a legitimate objective, controlled disintegration, and they implemented it. Paul Volcker's 20% interest rates crushed American industry in 1979. 3 Mile Island was used to kill the nuclear renaissance. NAFTA, the WTO, and finally Biden's Green New Deal were all attempts to cut and cull the population. And right at the center of the operation sits Iran. In 1953, British and American intelligence overthrew the nationalist Mohammad Mossadegh and installed the Shah. 25 years later, when the Shah began pursuing nuclear power and independent industrial development, they took him out too. In November 1978, Jimmy Carter named Bilderberg's George Ball to head a White House Iran task force under Brzezinski. Ball recommended Washington dump the Shah and back Ayatollah Khomeini's fundamentalist opposition. Engdahl shows that the blueprint came from British Islamist Bernard Lewis at the May 1979 Bilderberg meeting, a strategy to balkanize the Muslim Near East along tribal and religious lines, what Lewis called the Arc of Crisis. It produced permanent chaos and war, and that was the plan. That's where the IRGC comes in. That's the regime now claiming to outrun and outgun the U.S. Navy in the Strait of Hormuz. MI6, the CIA, and Mossad all had a hand in building it. They protected it for decades because terrorist chaos in the Gulf keeps oil prices up, and high oil prices keep the petrodollar pumping. Drill, baby, drill, and Trump's takedown of the IRGC have placed the oil weapon in this president's hands, and he's using it in the opposite way. Not to crush sovereign nations, not to prop up the IRGC as London's chaos asset, the opposite, to unleash American producers and to blow up London's empire of worthless financial paper.
All right. So, I mean, that thing is so worth watching. If you want, I mean, what a heck of a history lesson. Promethean Action. There's a link to the full program. I encourage everybody to get over there and support them. We want to watch them. AK Audits coming in from Washington State. Blake and I are just above you here. My grandfather, born in Spokane, so I've got a lot of history there, and family in Washington State, lots of relatives and stuff. So we're on Vancouver Island. Blake's in Victoria. I'm in Nanaimo, and welcome to the show, AK Audits. So a great channel name. Washington State, the great state, the evergreen state. Blake, what do you think of the breakdown of Promethean? This is probably so important for people to recognize the history and understand what's going on. If you don't have this foundation of understanding, then what Trump's doing and all, you could be fooled into thinking it's another forever war or something akin to we've seen in the past, just more trouble. But the hit list these ladies went 3 Mile Island. What? It undermined trust in nuclear energy. Could 3 Mile Island have been avoided? Maybe, just maybe it could have. Really interesting. Yom Kippur War, 1973. Of course, the successor to the 6-Day War. What was that? 67.
Yeah.
So, and then you have again the Arabs versus Israel. Then you've got this English statesman in there saying, you know, if we create we balkanize the Middle East, turn it into a bunch of ongoing tribal conflicts, accelerate it, we can make hay with this thing. Because of the changeover to the petrodollar, this allowed the American change of focus. Rather than trying to prosper the world, benefit, we could actually use the destabilization in order to further our own economic interests. Because we're off the gold standard, we'll just print PRN and keep the Fed happy. Your thoughts?
Well, I believe this has been the process all along. I don't think anybody can argue the points that this is not the case. I think Trump is doing his very best to blow this system up, to end it, because it has a stranglehold on the American people and their country. It has a stranglehold on all countries, really. The divide and conquer nature is very much a policy we see even within our own politics. You know, we've seen the deep state using the same tactics they use in the Middle East to us in our own countries against each other, and creating fictitious enemies of the state and going back and forth like, you need to hate these people and these people need to hate you. And they continue to divide and divide, which much of it is just a big psychological warfare. Why? Because you can maintain control. Create a crisis, manage it. Create a crisis, manage it. Create a crisis, manage it. But I 100% agree. I think the whole financial system, when it changed, and I wouldn't say that when Nixon changed creating the petrodollar was the catalyst. I mean, essentially the Federal Reserve System was the beginning of it, right? That's where they were given unlimited power to print money out of thin air based on a debt-based economy, assets that are tied on paper, tied to the future production of your people. They could borrow against it, invest with it. And basically we're trading debt notes. We're not trading actual dollars, which I find is fascinating, that both the petrodollar and the fact what happened in the Middle East to keep people equally divided so that you can manage them. We're also seeing that in the metals market. right? The metals market is going through that as well. The COMEX runs out of London, right? So what London says, they control the metals market, which is critical to everything, especially when we're dealing with high tech and defense industry spending. And you need silver, you need copper, you need gold. And gold was the traditional asset that backed every currency. And I'm hoping that as Trump is blowing up this stranglehold in the Middle East, which is essentially Iran became the states. They got blamed as being the state sponsor, but they were being managed by those countries, specifically the City of London financial elites, European elites in the the WF background. I think most people are more identify with that term because it's more modern, but it's the same people, and this is what they do. So I think, she's got it bang on. She clearly reads her history, which is good. And
it's remarkable.
And they've been involved with intelligence research. I think if I understand their background, which is great. But yeah, when you read about Kissinger, that Kissinger identifies himself more as a British agent than he did as an American citizen. I think that was like your first real deep state knowledge right there. There it was. Like, there you have people working within your country that don't represent the interests of your country, but the interests of this globalist cabal of ultra wealthy elites. And we're talking royals. We are talking the largest banks in the world, and who are all being run out of the City of London. And then now they essentially created the EU. Right, the EU was created from those people's hands. The Bilderberger meetings moved towards the creation of the EU. So I think as we see this going along, their generals are still in place in certain areas, like we have it in Canada. Mark Carney is one of their guys. We'll see what happens there. He's sort of been brought in to be an antagonist, I think, to Trump. But Trump, I think, is playing, he knows how to play that game with these guys. He knows where they are losing. And this is why Charles showed up, was wanting to meet with Trump, and did. King Charles met last week, and we saw what came out of that. And I think that was some very interesting comments. I thought it was very interesting because it's America's also 250th year of being a republic, which is fantastic.
Yeah, but happy birthday, America.
But King Charles is walking through the White House as he's arriving, and it's all revolutionary dressed guard that's there. And I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah. Just a reminder.
Just a little reminder. Exactly. So, but yeah, there is so much going on. We're seeing the dismantling of this system.
I think you're right.
And we're seeing the pushback against it. What's going to be interesting, as I said, China, because China was the system that they wanted to adopt worldwide, the governmental system. But I think China is kind of sitting on the sidelines now, eating popcorn, watching where this is all going to fall. And because I think they want to have their own say, because I think they know that they were also manipulated and controlled. And if you actually look at the history, much of these communist revolutions were financed by these guys that she was talking about, that Barbara was talking about. They financed these communist revolutions to destabilize countries. And, which is fascinating when you look at the history, and it makes you think. It's just, we've watched all those James Bond movies. We've watched it growing up, all that. We were kind of propagandized thinking, that England was our friend, and I think maybe they weren't. And I'm not saying the British people, and I think I've said that before, but the authority, the elites of London, the elites of Europe that are allied, and elites within the United States that sold their own souls to the system.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Of course, Trump's getting control of the midterms. I think I would argue, get out, like you were encouraging last episode, get out and vote. We got to do the groundwork. And I'm talking our American compatriots here. Yeah. Make sure you get out and vote, America, and make America great again. But if you do your due diligence, patriots are getting control of the voter rolls. There's a lot of cleanup, thousands of dead people and people that have moved from one state to another, no longer eligible to vote. These voter rolls have been cleaned up, mail-in voting being challenged, same-day tabulation, the Save America Act Got to make sure that gets through. And then the redistricting with the Supreme Court coming in and saying you cannot gerrymander based on race, which is common sense to anybody, but it's nonsense. This whole the whole issue of race. And on that topic, I don't know what to make of this particular headline, but we turn our attention briefly to Canada. And I've got to make this a little larger. You can see it's the 26th census, but the comment is, looks like the government wants to know how many Indians to send to your neighborhood, which is an interesting observation. So this individual, I guess, has gone on about it. Here's my personal copy. There it is, 2026 in the Francais as well. Oh boy, that's great. So I got to go online. It's a legal responsibility. The genealogist in me, the family history buff that I am, I love census data. They tell you about your great and how many was there and where they were living and what kind of work they were doing. And when that information becomes public every 20 years or so, it becomes really valuable for family historians. But the problem is that the government uses it as a tool to further its control. And really, I mean, it sounds like a conspiracy theory. It sounds like paranoia. But I think we have good reason to be concerned about data mining. We know that corporations do it. Any of us that have a smartphone, we know that they're tracking us on these things. They know what we're buying. A lot of
what we're saying.
They know they know the whole thing. They know more about us than we know. And I mean, you think about it, Blake, it's kind of a frightening thought. You want to know how long you live? Talk to your insurance adjuster, because they'll factor in every lifestyle thing you've ever frickin' done. How many pieces of toast do you have a week? And you're good for another 5 years. Yeah,
that's right. But if you burned it too much and ate it burnt, well, you got some carcinogens in you now.
So they factor in all that stuff, right? So the government mining a lot of this stuff, but really interesting, right? Are they thinking, because this is, of course, part of the UN doctrine that came out a few years ago, the paper out on population replacement. We know that we're not reproducing enough in the West, America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the UK. And so the population is changing. And with that change is going to come new social values, mores, norms, because it's going to look literally import the third world, become third world. Well, that's okay. Nobody's saying, white people are superior or anything, but we are saying that the white culture and the churches, they're burning down a church a week. I think it's something like one church a week over the last 7-10 years or something has burned down in Canada. And these are the traditional churches. So you burn them down, you remove it, and then because we're already in a post-Christian era, most people are secular, most people don't go to church, most people don't believe in God. To their discredit, as far as I'm concerned, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. I'm sorry, but I'm a Christian. That's where I come from. So we're seeing all these changes. And, Canada, you are old stock Canadian, you and me. I'm a Métis person. I'm a mixed race Indian, American Indian. But, we're going to see a real change of the changing of the guard. And when that happens, don't be surprised that you're going to see more mosques and temples, Sikh temples and the like. Indian, I don't know what the Hindus do, but you're going to see more of that, and it's going to become the norm for the nation. And the government's not no dummy. They get the program and then they pre-program it all. So they build an infrastructure before the reality is there, like all these green bike lanes and the car. You can only go travel car, and it's becoming increasingly inconvenient to drive into Victoria. It's a nightmare because they change it. You can't turn right on a turn signal anymore. Don't take it for granted because there's a bike has got a right of
priority lane.
Exactly. So a lot of the rules and changing the road, etc. But there's not enough bikes. It gets cold here in winter. Nobody's out riding their bike. You can go for an hour or two without seeing a bicycle when
Yeah.
you're out in a drive. Here's the deal. They built the infrastructure. Hey, don't worry about it. We've outlawed cars now. Diesel is bad for the environment. There's the morality clause. Now we've got the infrastructure. It's all good. Hey, don't worry about white people on your commercial. You're watching a whole bunch of East Indians and black people. Why is that? Because we're just preparing you for what the future looks like. It's nothing to be concerned about. We're just already ahead of you in the curve about what it's all about. So your thoughts on that, Blake? Lot said there.
Oh, yeah, a ton. Well, just on the city of Victoria and other places like that, they've all, a lot of this started rolling out around 2014, 13, 15 kind of range. And it just seemed to escalate so rapidly because the people that were our mayors and councillors in these cities were adopting UN resolutions left, right, and center. And it's just like your job is to represent the interests of the taxpayers who fund your job in your city, not to care about.
One quick question. I wonder if there's dark money coming in.
Oh, of course there is.
Coming in from outside. So they say, we'll give you an incentive if you do this in your municipality. And that's why it's cookie cuttered in America, in Canada, in the UK. We're looking like the same place in everywhere. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I see you've got your bike lanes all built too.
Well, this all aligns, right? Yeah. Well, and this all aligns to the 15-minute city philosophy. They want you to own nothing and be happy. You'll live in a shoebox, like 200 square foot places to live, which is basically a bed and a little fridge. And and eventually everybody will be on some form of money train that will be free money. Apparently, they call it a guaranteed annual income. Yeah. But that's essentially to do very similar to what the Saudis did, right? They pay people to not revolt, essentially, keep them fed, keep them get some money so that they don't become a rebellion against the elites. But it's fascinating because the people that we saw become mayor, they get into these positions, all seem to move on to very bigger positions worldwide. They've come out of the United Nations. They've come out of the WF. They've been planted. And America's going through this. We've all gone through this. We've seen the hand of Soros and his work with his group, planting their politicians at a very local level. We're not talking about, in Canada or the US where you have your House of Representatives and senators and all that side of it, but they're going right down to judges and attorney generals and planting in all the people they want at a very localized level. It's hyper local in the attack that they've done.
Yeah, it's brilliantly executed.
Well, it is. It is. It's right out of a scene that you would think that was, well, I said James Bond earlier, but it's something Spectre would be organizing worldwide. Yeah. And maybe that's what James Bond was actually talking about, that there is an organization, a real organization like Spectre. And it's
you expect me to talk? Go figure.
That's right.
Oh, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
That's right. So, and I think they, they kind of give this idea that we should just accept this social contract with these elites. And I think that social contract has been long broken. And, we're, the old robber barons of old are still firmly in charge, just in a different way. And I think we've seen this, that they want to replace the first world population. And I say that because we're too expensive. So you'll own nothing, you'll eat the bugs, you'll do all the stuff that they're demanding you to do and force you into these changes. Of course, MAGA is the antidote. It's the antidote to this. This is what we're seeing with the MAGA revolution in the United States is the antidote to crush this movement worldwide. As we saw Trump tweet out saying, how's that for a reset, right? He just shot them. They took a torpedo from him on that one. But the reality is that these are globalist elites, bankers, cartels that are running these financial cartels. They're bean counters. As you mentioned earlier about the insurance adjusters the insurance, not adjusters, but the people who monitor all the data. Sorry, my mind's skipping me on that one. But they're basically entering in all this data and they're bean counters. So you're just a number. You know, you're just a number in the books and you're a liability, right? So as you age, you're now on the liability books. And the first world, we're very expensive because one, we demand our freedom. We've been raised under that. We demand the things that we've paid for, our taxes have paid for, our pensions and et cetera, our healthcare plans, et cetera, et cetera. We demand a higher cost to manage our cities in the sense that we want nice, clean roads. We want nice lawns. We want nice homes. We want the place to look great. So as an advanced society, we're very expensive to the bean counters. And this is where it comes into this great, the migration, the great replacement theory, which isn't a theory. It is UN documents that are legitimately, you can find and read yourself. This was not a theory. It wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was a plan. And the plan was because the aging baby boomers and those of us Gen Xers and maybe even getting down into the millennials, we're just too expensive. So they want to replace us with third world migrants who are cheap and obedient. And I think that's a big part we need to understand. Why are they seeing in Europe like massive Islamic migration, right? Bringing in people from the Islamic world. And I have a theory on that. And that's just because Islamic people generally are not rebellious. They're not demanding, and they're very obedient to their church or to their mosque.
Yeah, to the mosque.
To their faith. So that's why they can put leaders in place who are Islamic, because they will be obedient. Whereas the Western civilization that we understood, which came out of the classical liberal rights historical background from the Magna Carta leading up to the American Revolutionary, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, had all this incredible language that was freeing the individual from the collective and the control of collectivism. And I'm not saying communism, but there was this idea that the church could control you and control your belief and what you did, and you didn't have a say and you just had to be obedient. Well, that's changed. So the free world is too expensive for these bean counters, so we're a replacement. Getting the third world replacement, that's cheap. Right. And then the other side of it is, we know what's happening in Canada. They've escalated the Soylent Green factories, if we want to call them that, through MAID. They're basically offering everybody now. You go into a hospital, you're not feeling well, we can offer you MAID. Let's kill you because you're too expensive. And there's this nefarious,
and it's good for the planet if you.
If you leave it, and it's good for your fellow citizens. You shouldn't be a burden, on your family and all this kind of stuff. And we're finding story after story after story again that people who were just suffering from an ailment that was curable are being murdered under MAID. So again, this is all part of the same package. It's a very nefarious package. It's scary, it's creepy, it's dark, it's evil. And I think, we've got people in the world now that are fighting back. And I think America has decided to be that shining light city on the hill and say, nope, we're fighting against that. We're not going to allow that. We're going to end that.
All right. Here's a great little clip. I like playing this. I've shown it many times over a number of years. We make it large, full scale. This is called Agenda 21, right? 2021. We're past that. We're in 2030 is a new one, Agenda 2030. I have lived a good life. It doesn't take much to read between the lines what this is all about. This from Glenn Beck.
The earth just cannot handle the sheer number of humans who live here. Something has to give. And I believe that it's up to us who have lived a good life to make sure that our children will have the opportunity to live good lives too. I have lived a good life.
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 All right. UN Agenda 21. So you kind of go, you can tell I'm a Beals fan. I like airplanes. But anyway, here's the thing. It's very clear if you read between the lines. I've lived. What are they saying there, Blake? What was the messaging there? What do you mean? A bunch of old people just going, I have a good life. The planet can't continue the way it's going, they say. I mean, there is that for our little youngins.
It's nefarious and evil that they come across with this nice, soft music. and they give that. I mean, this was done by Glenn Beck, right? I believe
Yeah.
this agenda twice, so it was kind of mocking it. But this is the kind of thing that they would do. They present it as you have a social responsibility
Mhm.
to get out of the way. You're a burden on society. You've lived a good life. Now let somebody else take over from here.
I
You
mean,
need
but
to
they
go.
aren't far off the path, Glenn Beck, despite the satirical nature of it.
Yeah.
It's so satirical, it's accurate. In Canada, we do
Well, this
have,
is how they run their political ads. We've seen it. We've
yeah,
seen this kind
we've
of stuff
seen that
before.
kind of soft sell, gentle,
Yeah.
sentimental.
Well,
these-
I mean, let's look at the greatest ad ever. I thought that just basically encapsulates how music and atmosphere can be used as a psychological weapon to make you feel a certain way. And I picture that IKEA commercial where that poor lamp is
Oh,
out
I
in the
love the
rain,
lamp.
and he's all there. It's all
Yeah.
getting rained
You
on.
feel
And
sorry
then that
for
guy
this
goes,
lamp.
"Are you silly? It's just a lamp." It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
because you're like, "Oh, that poor lamp."
He goes, are you feeling, you're feeling sorry for this lamp? That is because you are stupid.
Stupid.
It's got the little lamp and this little lamp head bows down in the rain. It's just messed up. Like the brave little toaster. Is that a video for the 1940s? Yeah, well, but it's very well done because in Canada we do have medically assisted induced death.
Yeah.
MAID, medically assisted induced death. I have a good friend of mine. Both his dad and younger brother were mated out, so they're off the planet. Yeah, just within the last little
Well,
while.
and you're hearing story after story after story almost every day. If you're on X, there's people posting this left, right, and center where there's
Yeah.
people that have turned it down and fought against them to the point
Yeah, I've seen
where
some of
somebody
those, yeah.
was mated who said, "I don't want to be mated," changed their mind, and they said, "You can't change your mind. You got to go through with it." And it's just, this was the insidious nature of how our governments have become this sort of
Yeah.
evil group of people. They have a fiduciary responsibility to look after you in the
Even-
sense of your defense and
Yeah.
what they're hired to do as your employees, public servant, but they're out there telling people to go kill themselves now.
Well, anecdotally, years ago, I mean, we're talking my mom died in 2015. And so this would have been like 2013, 2012, 2010, somewhere in there. My mom had a medical emergency. She wasn't doing that well. And the doctor came and said, listen, you got to sign a form. We got to know what to do, revive, not revive, what we're going to do. Do you want us to cut it? And he was doing all this stuff and kind of telling me you should probably let her go. And she absolutely recovered.
Yeah, he wanted us to decline treatment.
He encouraged us to decline the treatment.
Yeah, over the phone.
Over the phone, he was saying, I need an answer now.
Yeah, and we
A
said-
lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We
I said,
didn't, and she was fine for like another few years.
and then she lived another 7 years after this incident kind of thing. But I mean, it shows how insidious it was, right? You know? Anyway,
But you're right. That was a great video because it shows, even as said, it was satirical kind of, but it's to show the danger as how government uses that psychological trap to make people believe that they are the problem and that they have a duty to leave, because there's a lot of good people who believe the government is doing the right thing. And we saw that all through
they haven't
COVID.
woken up yet, right? They don't know yet.
And so we
They're
saw
gonna
through
find
COVID,
out.
right?
Hopefully
They were-
they'll find out.
Exactly.
Hopefully. Okay, here's another one. Now, we're going to stick with Canada for this. This came out a couple of years ago, but is relevant today as the day they first released it. This is Canada's version of WAPO. It's got a commercial. Big
Well,
fat
they want you to
commercial.
pay. They're desperate.
Yeah. Okay, National Post secret RCMP reports warns Canadians may revolt once they realize how broke they are. Right from the get-go, the report authors warn that whatever Canada's current situation, it'll probably deteriorate further in the next 5 years, by Tristan Hopper, dated March 20th, 2024. Really interesting headline, alarming, but the headline being that Canadian people, America's on an escalator going up, just as Trump was on the escalator going down, becoming president, announcing the nomination, I'm going to run. Now America's on the ascendancy. America's top nation once again. It's the envy of the world. I love, love, love the United States. And I'm so proud of President Trump, and Lord, protect him and keep him safe. But when it comes to Canada, we're the exact opposite. We're a cautionary tale of how a once affluent, prosperous first world nation is in absolute free fall and decline. And that's why they are toying with things like basic income, population replacement, and this thing that when they realize how poor, what do you mean we're poor? Huh? What do you mean Canada is poor? Is situation better here? How are we doing, Blake? What's the thermometer? Shove it up our collective ass and tell us how we're doing. Get a reading.
Oh, Canada you're right, is a free fall. We have been the laughing stock of the G7, or even, I think somebody had wrote a report saying, technically, if you were to take the financial data that we have now about Canada, we wouldn't even qualify to be in the G10 from back then. We are in that bad a shape. Our economy is in free fall. But going back to the beginning of our show here, when you're presenting, what Barbara was talking about from Promethean Action, but we are under their spell. We're under their control, their authority. And that's the problem. We are nothing more in their eyes to the City of London types as a resource extraction colony. That's it. And unfortunately, that mentality and that control mechanism is still there. That's why Canada could never get ahead. Canada could be an economic and republic equal to the United States in power and wealth. We have immense resources, but the problem is we still stuck in this 1800s mentality that we're still working for the Hudson's Bay Company, indentured servants, hewers of wood, drawers of water. And unfortunately, the Canadian system has built a massive dependency class, and it's roughly 40% of our population either directly or indirectly lives off government.
Yeah.
And so you got this block of people who will never want to cut the hand that feeds or force them to actually become truly productive.
Wake-up call? You're so right, Blake. You want a wake-up call is when there's a federal or a provincial government strike in a government city like Victoria.
Yeah.
And I went down there. It was thousands, not hundreds, thousands of people were out on the street. As you drive every street, government employees were out because they had to be, because of the union with the picketing. So it brought them into visibility. And then when you see, you go, my God, no wonder nothing ever changes. No wonder you can't no wonder my people never get elected here. We're totally out. What a perfect way for a government to operate. Hey, you want a ready, set voter base? Make sure that, the ones that are on the dole are being supplied by the government. And then the rest of them are monitoring and doing the paperwork to handle all those on the dole. So we got massive government employees and massive people on dole, collective, one beautiful big voting block. Horrible.
Well, and especially now we've got, they've even added in tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of more, just because of the refugee payment status. We've got people who have never spent hardly a day in Canada making more money on refugee benefits than Canadians who have worked their entire lives here.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got this bizarre situation. So Canada is definitely in a free fall. Mark Carney was brought in to rescue a collapsing system, because they knew that with Trump changing that, with Alberta is very independent. It's probably the most independent, more than Quebec, more independent minded province than any other area in Canada, is a direct threat. The problem we have, of course, is that they basically control, for the most part, the direction of the Conservative Party. Without Alberta, the Conservative Party would be decimated. They would be nothing but a rump third party, and it would be the bureaucratic class, Liberals fighting with the unionist class of the NDP for power. And that's basically, and there might be a handful of Conservatives in Ontario and stuff like that. But we are under their control. And unfortunately, Canadians are daft to political change and geopolitics. They like to pretend they come across as being highly intelligent and highly educated. But the educated, when you hear the word educated in Canada, it means that they've just been indoctrinated.
Yeah, really.
With the propaganda. It's not the same thing. They're not wise people. They love to spew a lot of crap, like the whole elbows up campaign that came up with Mark Carney.
Horrible.
He should have never. This guy hadn't spent a day in Canada for a decade, and then they just drop him in. He's now our prime minister. Knocked out all 2 major competitors who were building up campaigns to be leadership hopefuls for the Liberal Party, and they banned them. They just banned them. Say, sorry, you can't run. And so this is what Canada's become. And unfortunately now, you know, the same guy who's saying that, you know, was elbows up, we'll strike our own way in the world, Canada will be strong and free nation will build all this, is now saying, well, we're going to now join Europe. Right. Yeah. So what happened to elbows up and sovereignty? No, let's join Europe. We're going to do the new rules-based order that's forming under Europe. So basically, he hasn't left the WF program.
Not at all.
He is the general. He is an architect amongst that group. So they are pushing this forward. And unfortunately for him, I think the midterms, and again, we say this again, show up to vote. Don't get complacent.
Correct.
You need to crush them at every possibility, because you're not fighting just for America. You're actually fighting for the world freedom for yourself in the world as well. Yeah. Because if you allow a flip, this whole thing will unravel fast. And these guys love to work on creating campaigns of destabilization. They do that in the Ukraine. They did that in recently in Hungary.
I think we just sent them another 145 mil or something. We're up to like I don't know.
We're billions and billions.
But I know, but the latest donation was 45 mil.
Another 200 million here, another 180 million there,
nuts.
A couple billion there. Canada is it is unfortunately there's a lot of good people here, but they're trapped. Right. We have a society that has been raised to believe we're superior to Americans. And as a Canadian, I will say that I as a younger person, used to believe in that. Right. Because people would tell us, right, we were raised that way. Oh, we're better. We're better. Why are we better? And then when you start questioning what makes us better? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, we have free healthcare. Right. And that was kind of the big thing. And it was like the healthcare. And then it was like,
God help us. That's ridiculous. But anyway, I got the argument. But
and so we've lived under this ridiculous propaganda machine that has tried to basically train us into trained sheep. As I said, that 40% work for the system. And even I said, our businesses rely off that system.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so hard. It's not like you can get, you know, it's more like 40% of the population wants to be free. And we're under the boots of this sort of fascist, quasi-soft fascist government that will put a boot on your neck and say, too bad for you. And now they're tell Canadians, if you try to leave and you've got a bit of money, you got to pay. They want you to pay an exit fee of $500,000.
Yeah, I heard
well,
that.
Isn't that very North Korean of them?
Well, it's it's a Titanic, right? And so people want to get the hell out. Okay. One of the big stories that we're following are the so-called MAGA voice, Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson. Tucker's the one, Alex Jones, Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly didn't bother me because she had already run afoul of Trump during the debates, and tried to go, "You're a nasty lady. It's a horrible question," that sort of thing. So I never really warmed up to Megyn Kelly. You want to like her because she's an attractive woman. You want to like her, but she's no good. And the same thing with Tucker. I like Tucker. Tucker in the old point counterpoint days, way back ago, Tucker. Yeah, with his little bow tie, and he was a voice of conservative thought. And I thought, this is a good guy, smart kid, young guy. And then he was only in his 20s. And we've all grown up with Tucker. I know those of us like myself that are that much older see this young pundit growing up.
Crossfire.
He was a good guy. Yeah, Crossfire is what we're talking. Yeah. And he turned out to be fake, phony, and false. And people are questioning the guy's mental well-being. It's that bad. I mean, other pundits are looking at him going, what the hell? So I feel sad about Tucker because he had so much potential. He could have been a voice for good. He's no good. He wanted, and all these guys, Alex Jones calling for the 25th Amendment on the president. Dangerous, horrible rhetoric, not good, bad. Amongst these Nick Fuentes, so I got a couple of Nick Fuentes items that are quite revealing and I feel sorry for anybody that followed this moron. We'll go full screen on this to help you visualize. There's Carney. Yeah, we'll do that in a bit. Sorry, I didn't want to shock you. That's like John, you know what? Yeah, I don't want to do that to you again. The biggest tell that Nick Fuentes has been a Democrat psyop all along is the fact that here he is on video calling for people to storm the Capitol. And for 4 years, Democrats didn't touch him, but they arrested grandmas who did nothing wrong. So there's Fuentes at the Capitol January 6th, and he's out there. I think he has a megaphone. Yeah, there he is with the megaphone going, let's get him, take him down, right? Nobody, no judgment, no thing on him. So this is good. Awaken Outlaw goes, our ranks were intentionally flooded with his ilk in hopes of attracting a MAGA audience, only to later and 100% intentionally turn on Trump, try to take their audience with them. Think duplicitous Pied Pipers. And yes, they failed miserably, praise God. Nick Fuentes is out of the closet. We told you so. Fuentes now, by his own admission, says he is a Democrat. Let's listen to the boy himself. And he does use a bad word here, the N-word, which should say something about Democrats and who the real racists are. There it is with this nonsense, America First, to combat MAGA, Make America Great Again. Don't fall for it. But here's the proof of it all. Nick Fuentes, ladies and gentlemen.
I care about affordability. I care about foreign interventions. I care about the border. I'm a non-woke moderate Democrat. I think the GOP needs to be destroyed. I think the corrupt criminal government of Trump needs to be slowed down. We need to impeach the orange. It's time to put this nigga in a peach. Trump needs to be placed inside of a crystal. He needs to be impeached. This fat orange, tiny hands needs to be impeached. And then in 28, no Vance, no Rubio. We have to burn down the whole party. I care about affordability. I care about.
All right, there he is. And just because
he's like the anti-Charlie Kirk.
Yeah. Since we're here, let me go smaller here and roll out, because we did show Carney. It goes, I have a proposition for Canada. We take possession of Canada. We give each liberal Canadian $500,000 to move to Europe permanently and exit the North American continent. After successfully uniting the liberal 50% of Canada with their new European brothers, U.S. becomes the newest and largest country in history, with the conservative Canadians who are now proud Americans. Total cost about $7 trillion to get her done. Canadian PM Mark Carney talking about closer ties with Europe. We'll play the clip. There we go.
We'll discuss later. We are an energy superpower, third largest oil producer, fourth largest natural gas, largest hydro renewable base. We're committed to addressing climate change while providing reliable, affordable energy to our citizens and partners. In closing, we're here because of your invitation. Again, thank you for that. But we're here because of the moral and security imperatives of our cooperation in the Caucasus, in the Baltics, in Ukraine, across Europe, and also because of the immense potential for our partnerships to build a better, more prosperous, sustainable, and just world for our citizens. And I'll close with this. It's my strong personal view that as the international order will be rebuilt, but it will be rebuilt out of Europe. And so I'm very appreciative of this. And as we'll discuss.
Okay, so
which is interesting.
Yeah, it's hugely interesting. Both comments are interesting. The pundit situation, I think Nick Fuentes completely exposed. Anybody, I feel sorry for anybody foolish enough to follow this idiot. But Democrat psyop, quite possibly, identifies a Democrat, saying he's like a moderate Democrat. In fact, he didn't even say I'm like one. He goes, I am a moderate Democrat. So really interesting. Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, another one. Alex Jones, another one. Tucker Carlson, sadly, another one. Be careful who you follow, Q said a long time ago. It seems to have been true. They tried to divide. It didn't happen. The latest talking points are, let's get along with Democrats. Let's form a new united front against the extremists on both our sides. This is basically Rhino positioning. Let's get Liz Cheney and make her queen over all of us, and we'll be happy. But anyway, moving on to Canada, you got Mark Carney there, closer ties to Europe. clearly setting up another sphere of power. So you've got China, Russia, Europe, America. There's your four corners of the world. Canada, is Trump going to allow some satellite, foreign, anti-American, European, fucking despotic, world economic, commie bastard, screw up country to just saddle up and sit comfortably on its border where they can funnel fentanyl through and arms and drugs or whatever the hell else they want to do on the American border? I answer no, never in a million years. Trump will bust your ass, and it'll start with economic. He will economically castrate Canada as a walking, talking transsexual. I'm going to tell you, that is not an easy ride. All right, go ahead, Blake. Take it away.
Going back to the beginning, Nick Fuentes, that guy has always given me the creeps from the beginning. I never understood why a lot of these pundits were bringing him on his show and giving him any air. The guy, there was something not right of him, and you just.
Well, how did he, you got to watch The Rise and see what kind of money, dark money was behind him to funnel The Rise and say, hey, we'll pay you $1 million so you get this kid on your show. Okay.
Well, and I think he wanted to piggyback on his own version of TPUSA. I think he was trying to sabotage actually Charlie Kirk and his movement to try, because Charlie Kirk was winning in the colleges, in the young, getting young people to get off the Maoist train that they've been taught in universities and to be radical far left lunatics to becoming normal conservatives and believing in the bright future of America and the land of opportunity, really the land of milk and honey. And Nick Fuentes, he's cancerous. You could hear it in his speech. As soon as he started going on against the Jews, you knew it was a psyop. Right? Because as soon as it's the Jews, if it's, I was just watching a show yesterday and they were saying the same thing. Really, no Jews, no news, right? I think it's kind of like that's what they do. And they try to create that sort of anti-Semitic lingo to tarnish the MAGA movement. This guy was trying to plant himself in there, knowing full well his job was to annihilate from the inside like a cancer, destroy MAGA, turn them into anti-Jewish people, turn them into anti-Semitics.
So they could play the race card that we found out Southern Poverty has created, whatever the hell they got.
And he may have got his money from them too. I mean, who knows, right? And they put on actors. They pay for these deep state actors who are also in the media. The CIA has been involved with Hollywood and media for decades, involved with the propaganda machine, and the deep staters have used Hollywood to get their points across and try and change public opinion, just like they have tried to demonize the patriot as being the problem. They're racist, they're white, generally they're, they love their guns, they love their country. They love their country, so thus they're an enemy of the state. That's kind of what they make them look like, that they're the terrorists, which is just totally bizarre. Because remember Biden, when he was saying that the single biggest threat to America was white Christian nationalists. Well, white Christian nationalists, right? That's what he focused. Christian people, patriots, right? People who love their country, protect their country, and hate all the other crap.
The four freedoms that Norman Rockwell wrote about, Thanksgiving, the family at Thanksgiving, the free speech, the guys standing up and at a union meeting or a public meeting, the freedom of of practicing religion. They've got the praying one, so Rockwell made those and those values are what old stock Americans valued and promoted. They were the values, and I would argue they were identical with Canada. Also,
it's the same war where same psyop is happening in Canada too. They demonized our own patriots, and then they used it in the last election to try and rally patriotic support when they hated our flag. They were changing to get rid of our flag. And you see it in the UK, that the same thing. They're tearing down your own national flag to get rid of it because it represents patriotism. And if we look back at history, the communists, they were split into two camps. The one camp was they believed a communist revolution would be done by force, but they saw it was a failure under Lenin. It was a total failure. It didn't work. And they thought in World War I that all the workers would unite against their masters to stop World War I, and they would have this communist revolution internally in all these countries, and they would all become communists and would stand against it. But they forgot one thing: patriotism, their love of God and family. And that was in the way of communists. And it was Adorno, who was one of their Frankfurt School communists that came from Germany. They dumped them into New York, and then they started propagating their cancerous ideas into America. But they believed the cultural side. So that was Mao's vision, right? We'll convert the culture. So we go to war against the culture. We don't go to war. We need to change the culture. We need to demonize that culture to the point where the people themselves will rise up against their own culture. And what do we see today? They're using that in their playbook today. People who are waving the British flag or the American flag, they'll tear it down. The authorities will try and arrest you and do stuff like that in Canada. Same thing, but then all of a sudden we see this change.
Flag's all good to go. You
exactly. We see this kind of bizarre hypocrisy that's allowed to just blatant be in front of our eyes, and we're supposed to accept that as normal. And this is a psyop, right? That's the only way you can understand it. It's a psyop. And then getting on to Tucker really quick. I mean, Tucker is, you know, as you said, 2 years ago, he was at the top of his game. He was aligned with Trump. He obliterated the January 6th story of the Democrats. He opened that wide up. He lost his job over it. The guy could be an untouchable at this point, but for some reason, he just all of a sudden 90% of his content now is all about Israel and Trump tied to Israel, to the point where he was just interviewed the other day, I think by, I can't remember what magazine, but anyways, there was an interview and they asked him and said, like, you called Trump the Antichrist, and he denied it. And then they played
the clip of him
well, he didn't say Trump is the Antichrist. He said he could be the Antichrist because you don't know. And I'm like, if there's anybody getting to Carney's speech, we know biblically, I think the Antichrist comes with the mountain of 7 hills. It's going to come out of Europe.
Well, and I would argue
it's a recreation of the Roman Empire.
Well, one of the things about Antichrist is you'll like Antichrist.
Yeah.
The world will love frickin' Antichrist.
Exactly.
Antichrist is going to be, Carney is more an Antichrist.
That's my point. Who's he working for? And where is he trying to reestablish the world order and power? They wanted the fight is between America and Europe, and they want Europe, or they want America to be subservient to that system.
Yeah, they want the U.S. to basically the plan was to have a war with China and have America lose it. And I think cripple the military, and they were hurting the military, all that woke nonsense, all that stuff. Canada has destroyed its military. Now they've got to build it back up. They're talking about forced conscription. They're talking about the Ukrainian plan. Well, if you've seen the Ukrainian videos of husbands being dragged out and sons from families and loaded up in a back,
going for a walk with their dog on the street, and then being kidnapped.
Right, car comes in, and a bunch of guys. Basically, the old what do they call that?
Shanghai.
But there was the press gang, press gang in the British Navy. You'd be at a pub, and the Navy would bust in on the pub and grab you, and the next thing you know, you're a sailor. This sailing life for me. Well, Blake, I see by the clock and well, we've hit that vaunted time. An hour can go by very quickly on this program. Final thoughts? Anything you'd like to draw the audience's attention to before we fly out and call it another well-rounded episode?
Well, I would just say for everybody to stay the course. Follow the plan, stick to the plan, support the plan. And if you think that Trump is doing something and you're being told in the media that he's trying to get into forever wars and all that, just be careful who you're listening to. A lot of it is just propaganda to twist and create division. Just like we saw at the top of the show, that same operation is happening in your own country, where they're trying to pit people against people like they did in the Middle East, like they do everywhere, to keep their power.
If you listen to those people, all they're doing is taking us right back to George Bush and the same old, and on it goes. Forever wars and that kind of commercialized conservatism, if you will, conservatism in name only, but really anemic and never moving it forward. Trump is talking about, quote, the golden age. How
Yeah.
about no capital gains tax when you sell your property to your kids, if you're fortunate enough to have any?
Well, America, you've got a constitution that gives you the opportunity to be the greatest nation on earth because you're free in this exchange of free ideas. You can be anything you want to be. Remember, that was the dream. You could grow up and as a kid and dream being an astronaut, or
you could be anything you want.
Build
That's
a
the
large
American
business.
dream.
As long as you chase that dream and went after it, you have a chance, right? That's the thing. And then that exchange of ideas in that arena made it so that it would be like a sharp sword being polished, right, and sharpened up. I remember you giving that analogy about a samurai sword, right? It would fold and fold it something like 100 times, and it would just fold and fold till it's just sharp and perfect. And that's what that system does. It grinds out to people to have opportunity to work towards what they dream on being, rather than just being dreamers doing nothing. And that's Canada. We're dreamers and not doers because we're restricted by massive amount of bureaucracy that holds all that back, and they don't want that, because if it happens, that's the day Canada gets free, when we wake up and say, I can be anything I want to be, and I'm not gonna let you
Canada
stop
was
me.
never allowed that. We were always on a tether. America broke that tether. Canada was it remains well and truly tethered. So we will keep watching. Who knows what's going to happen Friday, as Blake and I always say on this program. We'll do a show, we'll break, and then there'll be breaking news of something big happening. We got Comey indictments, Brennan, Clapper, all those usual suspects.
Florida with their redistricting.
Redistricts happen in Florida, and a lot of states are moving in Tennessee, Alabama. They're even talking Georgia and North Carolina. So fingers crossed that good things happen. God bless America. God bless you folks for watching the program, and we will see you all again on Friday, the Lord willing. Bye for now. Both.